Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Let's Talk Sports Fantasy Football Show. I am joined today, as always, by my brother, Matthew Larrison, at Larrison Bets. And we got a special guest. We got Nick Bodkins of the Bodkins Show in here with us. Nick, thanks for joining us today, man. We're going to talk through some of our favorites.
I'm disappointed that you didn't call me your other brother from, another mother. Your dad claims me. When are you going to start claiming me as your brother?
I already have, technically. I just don't. I'm so confident in it that I don't need to announce it at the top of every show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I figured that was a foregone conclusion at this point.
Dad's just trying to get the tax write-off. That's all.
We got enough of those. All three of us got enough of those things.
Yeah. A tax write-off on a 36-year-old. 38-year-old, however old I am. You know what I mean?
Keep the glasses off, Nick. You're about 17.
Right? Hey, mentally, I am at times.
Too much. He doesn't need that. Guys, we're only like 3 weeks away from regular season NFL football. This is the last weekend of preseason, which I'm hyped about. So that way I don't got to watch more shitty football and write about it for another week at least. So Matt and I are gonna talk through my guys, those flag plant players that we're trying to leave pretty much every single draft with, if possible, for a multitude of reasons that we'll go into, and the guys that we're fading as hard as possible at their draft price. We think that they're pretty much draft day busts. Don't draft them unless they go super cheap. So that's what we're gonna do. We'll plug the sponsors real quick, and of course, we'll get Nick's input on these guys too. Just don't listen to that part as much as you would listen to me and Matt. Underdog and Owner's Box. Use promo code LTS. You can get up to $100 price match on your first deposit. I don't think I have to explain this, right? I mean, we're all doing best ball drafts. We're all doing regular drafts. We're all doing our drafts for our leagues. Go to these websites. Use the promo code. Go get your best ball going. Weekly stuff's going to start up soon enough. You can go use that, get that deposit right now and save that money until the regular season starts. If you're crazy, you're like Scott Cobe, you can just start betting on preseason NFL. Don't do that if you're smart, but you can do it if you want to, just to get a little bit of the action. So go to Underdog and Owner's Box. Use the promo codes LTS. And then just for me personally, go to yardsperfantasy.com. You get 25% off the 2023 projection kit using promo code Ryan. And you can also sign up for a personalized podcast for your dynasty or keeper league. I say it every week. We've got a couple more in the pipeline that we're working on right now. But if you want this done for your dynasty leagues and stuff, get it in now because the season's going to start. So if you want a good 3 to 4 hours worth of content just based on your league specifically, you can sign up for that right now by going over to yardsperfantasy.com. Boys, the only piece of news that I got for you today is the Jerry Jeudy injury. Got carted off the field, which I know Bodkins and I were talking about it in the chat earlier, how now if you sneeze the wrong way, you're getting carted off the field in NFL practices or games, which just doesn't make any damn sense to me. But it did come out that he's going to miss several weeks with a hamstring injury. We all know too well that hamstring injuries are just an absolute pain for fantasy purposes. If the team doesn't manage the player properly, they can miss anywhere from 3 weeks to legitimately 10 weeks. We saw it with Keenan Allen last year with how mismanaged his hamstring injury was. So what are you guys doing about it? Matt, what are you doing with Jeudy? Because I know out of both of us, we're fairly high on Jeudy. I have him ranked as a wide receiver too. I got to fix that now. But I had him as a top 24 wide receiver because I thought he could max out in that offense with Sean Payton as head coach. But now if he misses 4 to 6 weeks, I don't know when the best time to draft him is going to be.
Yeah, it's really hard. And Jeudy is not somebody who has been injury-free also. So that's another thing.
He's missed time every year.
Yeah, that's another thing to consider. It just kind of goes back to that, homage of trying to hold out as long as you can to do your drafts because somebody is pissed right now, and it's everybody who, drafted Jerry Jeudy. So, yeah, exactly. So
lots of best ball shares of Jeudy.
It's really good. Best ball, that would just be detrimental. Absolutely
that
detrimental.
Sucks. But I've gotten him later than most, so
yeah.
I'm okay.
It's looking real good for Cortland Sutton as long as he doesn't get the plague of all these injuries to the wide receivers. He looks to be the best candidate for a really strong fantasy season. He already was pretty decent before. He had a off year last year in the worst offense coordinated besides Matt Patricia. So I think it's going to be different this year for him. I really like Greg Dulcich even more now. I think it maybe hurts Russell a little bit just because, to have a star like that not on the field, that's going to affect him. But we'll see how long it goes. It could be, 3-4 weeks. But if it's a long time, like you said, Keenan Allen was out pretty much almost the whole season last year because you just can't get it right with the hamstring. You got to really let it heal and let it heal properly. So just more bad news. So hopefully you haven't drafted yet. And if you have, there's more to come. They usually come in threes.
Oh, great. Thanks for that, you dick. Anyways, Nick, what do you think about the whole Judy injury? Were you higher on Judy than anybody else for that Broncos passing attack? And if so, now how are you treating it?
So let me just say, ain't karma a bitch, Sean Payton? You know what I mean? That's first Tim Patrick gets hurt. Now you got Judy. Tim Patrick's out for the year. We know that. So who knows when he'll ever play again. But now you got Judy with this hammy. This is all after Sean Payton's talking a bunch of, how things were, this and that. They haven't really looked great in preseason. Like Russ hasn't looked great in preseason from what I'm hearing. I'm not watching. I'm not going to be give you full. But from what I've read and heard on different shows and podcasts that I trust, that, things have not been great. Russ hasn't looked good. I still not looking down more than up. And, that offensive line's not that great either. So I was a little higher on Judy. I mean, not that I was, I kind of liked where his ADP was, particularly like if you could have waited on him at where there was guys where his ADP is, I liked a few other guys around that area. But, now I would not draft Jerry Jeudy at all almost. I feel like because it's that soft tissue, hamstrings, these things, he's out several weeks, but then it takes more weeks to bounce back from that, even after that. So I am fully out on Jerry Jeudy and almost fully out on this outside of Samaje Perine. I might be fully out on this Broncos offense, period.
Well, I know that Matt and I are both, and we'll talk about him later. We're both big fans of the tight end, Greg Dulcich. And with no Judy, that goes even higher because the target's
he's got to throw the ball. When they do throw the ball, he's got to throw it to somebody. My biggest thing is you guys are high on this, but when has Russ ever used a tight end? And I think we've had this discussion before, aka 365 days ago when you were high on this tight end. And I said, when has he ever used a tight end? They had Jimmy Graham in his prime. Remember when Jimmy Graham got traded to Seattle? And everyone's like, oh, my God, Jimmy and Russ are going to be this hot connection. How'd that work out? Name one tight end that Russ has ever had in the top 10, top 5. I'm waiting, Ryan. I'm waiting.
I'm pretty sure Jimmy Graham was in that top 12-ish range at least once. But anyways, I'm not going to go and waste everybody's time with that. The belief, and Matt, you can disagree with me or add anything to this when I'm done, but the belief for Dulcich is more of a belief in an offensive scheme change. The tight end for Sean Payton most of the time is a pretty prominent part of the offense.
That is true. I'll give you that.
He's going to make that relevant. He already has tons of positive things to say about Dulcich, like why didn't the old regime use him at all last year like he was supposed to? And you just keep taking targets away. You take away Tim Patrick. You take away KJ Hamler. You take away Judy. You take away there's another receiver that left too. It was like he was on that KJ Hamler tier. That was one of the backups. I can't remember what the hell his name is now. You keep taking these guys away, and all you're left with by the end of it is going to be Courtland Sutton, Dulcich, and the rookie, Marvin Mims. So those targets got to go somewhere. Tight end is going to be a broken Russell Wilson having half a second to throw his best friend. So I think it's going to work out. We'll see. But the tight end thing with him in Seattle, Pete Carroll doesn't know how to use a damn tight end. Look at him right now. He's got Noah Fant. He's throwing Will Dissly out there. Like, what the hell is going on with that?
Yeah.
And they signed 2 tight ends from the XFL this year. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
So unlike Nick, I've unfortunately tortured myself and watched plenty of Broncos football last season and in the preseason. The one thing that you do notice is when Russ has nothing left, which again, this is possible because of all the injuries. Dulcich is his best friend. He is the guy that he dumps off the 5-yard passes to. He always does there's usually a 25+ yard gain attempt with Dulcich once a game with Wilson. But like you said, the less targets that are going to come, because all these guys are not going to be there from injuries. Dulcich is going to just eat all that up. He's a safety blanket. And where he's going in drafts is why we like him so much, because, you're basically looking at the purgatory of tight ends at that point. Nobody's, you're just basically throwing caution to the wind and just trying to hope you get something good. So that's why I think, that's a chance of something prosperous in that deep tight end level. So yeah, give me Dulcich, especially with all these injuries. Hopefully he just doesn't have to go down like all these other receivers in Sean Payton's name.
Another guy that receivers, just kind of staying on the receiver, Terry McLaurin, toe issue, looks like turf toe. Uncertain if he's going to be ready for week 1, but I think he'll be fine. I'd take Terry.
Dotson lovers, get ready.
I already loved him. I didn't care. Now I love him way more, which we can just jump in now because there's not a lot of other news that we need to discuss. Let's go to my guys.
You don't want to discuss Corey Davis retiring or N'Keal Harry getting cut, my guy, N'Keal Harry.
Listen, I gave N'Keal. I already poured one out for N'Keal Harry earlier, so we can just let that one. We can let that one ride.
The fantasy mascots are all retiring this year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Corey Davis one really hit me out of left field. I did not expect anything like that to happen. But
I mean, where was he? I thought he was going to get cut. Like I figured, they owe him a lot of money, but I thought he would be on the cut list if he didn't retire. So
many teams needing receivers. I figured by now they would have traded him, even if it was for like a 7th in return instead of just cutting him. But now we know why he didn't get traded. He didn't want to play football anymore. So we'll start with the quarterbacks. And I'll preface this by saying some of these overlap with each other between my guys for myself and Matt's my guys that he likes quite a bit. Same with the fades. We'll just start at quarterback. Geno Smith and Aaron Rodgers have been my 2 favorite quarterbacks to draft late. I can get them both pretty much past round 10 in most drafts.
Yeah, Carlos took him in the 3rd round.
Unless you got that crap going on. Jesus, man, that drives me crazy.
It's great for me.
I love the guy, but I don't love him that much.
Same.
It's like Jesus. But anyways, so Geno Smith, I mean, I don't think there's anything else that you could possibly say. He finished as a quarterback 6 last year, adds JSN, who I know is going to miss some time early, but drops all the way to QB like 15 in drafts. I get it. I don't expect QB 6 again in 2023, but he was literally the most accurate passer in football last year over everybody in terms of completion percentage. And you can get him in the 10th, 11th, and 12th round in most drafts. So couldn't be happier with that. And then similar stuff for Aaron Rodgers. We've seen when he has someone that's the level of like a true tier 1 wide receiver, he can go off for fantasy. It may not be top 5, but he's going to give you back-end quarterback one numbers most weeks. And you can't get much worse than he did last year. And he still finishes a QB 13. So I expect a jump up in production from him and to be able to snag him. The fantasy community doesn't seem to think he's going to jump up in production because he's going as like the QB 16. But man, dude, him and Garrett Wilson are just going to absolutely eat this year. So I'll take him as a back-end quarterback 1 that I can get in the 12th and 13th round if I totally punt the quarterback position. Matt, I know you love Geno too, so I'll let you go in on him for a second, and then we'll see what Nick thinks about these guys.
Geno's easy, and it's really just because of where he's going in drafts. And, he just added JSN to that already strong wide receiver room. So I think that he, it's going to be difficult for him to have the season he had last year. I mean, that was, way above what expectations were, but I think he'll still float around the top 10, maybe even 11 or 12. And that's still a pretty decent number compared to where he's being drafted. So Geno all day. I can't believe I'm saying that, remember him being a Jet and watching all of that chaos, but yeah, give me Geno. Aaron Rodgers, he's not a fade for me, but he's not a, like I got to have him. I mean, the ADP is good for him. I don't think he should be higher because the first 7 weeks, he's actually facing the top 10 defensive lines from last year. His whole schedule all season is incredibly difficult. He's in the AFC East, Bill Belichick's defense, Sean McDermott's defense. Miami's, they got a good defense, but they're not known for it. But that's 6 games out of the year. He's going to have a really tough time. He plays a lot of other tough teams too. Philadelphia. I think they play Kansas City. So he's going to have a really tough time. It's going to be tough for them to win games. Buffalo's got the same issue. So I can see why his ADP is where it is. But where it's at, I understand why people draft him for sure.
All I heard was high scoring affairs, which is great for
that's what I heard too. That's what I heard too, Ryan.
I know. I don't know your thoughts on Geno, Nick, but I know that you're a fan of Aaron Rodgers for fantasy, especially at his price. So,
I absolutely. So the last time, you mentioned last year. You know who wasn't his OC last year? Nathaniel Hackett. You know who his OC was the 2 previous years when he was freaking MVP? Nathaniel Hackett. Add that in. So there's one. We all know when elite athletes, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, when they're the most pettiest people in the world, and when they're pissed off, that's when they're the greatest.
He's right.
Nobody's going to be more petty and more pissed off to prove a fucking point this year than Aaron fucking Rodgers. So by God, he is going to go scorched. Give me scorched earth Aaron Rodgers. Now, don't take him in the third like some people, but I mean, by God, I got a big circle around Aaron Rodgers late in the draft if I don't snag somebody early that I feel comfortable with. Outside of that, give me the pissed off Aaron Rodgers with Nathaniel Hackett, Garrett Wilson, Lazard, Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook. Like, give me all those guys. Like, and that defense is going to play well. Like, yeah, sign me up for Aaron Rodgers. Geno, I think you like him because he's got a lot of weapons too, right? We saw what he did last year. Now they added JX in. I know he's going to be out, but week 1's questionable, but he'll be fine later in the year. Another year with Pete Carroll. That team was played really well last year. He's got a good running game behind him, and Kenneth Walker and the kid that they drafted. I like both of these guys, but and you could favor Geno just due to the scrambling aspect a little bit more. We know Aaron's not going to run like nowhere really, you know what I mean? But he's going to sling it for you. And sign me up for it. Like, sign me up for Aaron Rodgers. I like Aaron Rodgers more than I like Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I agree.
This guy gets
he's a cheap Dak Prescott. He really is based on
he's a cheap, better Dak Prescott.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying where Dak Prescott's going, you're basically getting the same or better value at an even cheaper price drafting Rodgers. Now, I will say that no one can convince me otherwise, that Aaron Rodgers is calling the plays he did when he was MVP, and Nate Hackett's just there to be like, good job, buddy. You did a good job.
I mean, sometimes that's what you need, though.
Do I think he has certain plays that he likes? Yes. But do I think him and Nathaniel Hackett are step and step? Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting. So I don't know if you guys are watching Hard Knocks or not, but I've been watching it, and their relationship is great. But Nathaniel Hackett is a character, I feel like loves like movie quotes and having fun and things like that. So that enlightened me to a little bit why things didn't work in Denver last year. You can be a character and a funny guy when you're the assistant coach and keep things loose.
When you're the head coach,
But when you're the head coach, you're the be-all, end-all. You got to be the authoritarian. You can't be everybody's buddy and friend, which I think Nat Hackett is kind of like that, and it's good when you're assistant. But when you're the head coach, you don't really have that. How do you build a foundation, right? A program when your coach is always turned on to, having fun and playing games and things like that. Like, that's a little bit harder, You could be a player's coach much like Pete Carroll, but I feel like that's, he's not such a character like Hackett.
Yeah, Pete Carroll going out there, shredding his defensive backs, throwing off his back foot. Dude, that was the greatest clip I've ever seen.
Hey, Pete Carroll plays better football than Trey Lance. That's proven.
I don't see Trey Lance on my guys or our fades either. He's not even worth a fade.
Yeah, no, he's not worth a fade because he's not being drafted.
There's people who I guarantee, Ryan, that people have drafted him. I guarantee.
Oh, I can name you one person, but we won't. Running backs is pretty easy if you watch the show this entire offseason. Everyone knows how much I love Miles Sanders. I have him ranked as a top 12 running back. I think he's a shoo-in for 300 total touches, and everyone says that he's going to regress because he's not in Philly anymore, but the run-blocking offensive line in Carolina is top 5, just like Philadelphia's was last year. They're going to have to lean on him with Bryce Young as a rookie. I love his draft price point. You can get him in the 5th round of drafts, which is just incredible to me. And, I mean, like I said, there's few workhorses in the NFL. This guy is one of them right now. James Conner, Matt and I both love James Conner. He's not in your My Guys list, Matt, but I know that you have quite the affinity for him yourself. It's the same thing. Price point. You're going to get a guy who's going to get a ton of work on a Cardinals offense that doesn't want to do anything but run out the clock until the end of the season. So he's just going to get touch after touch after touch. He's going to be used in the passing game. Not too worried about it. And the Cardinals are always going to be down. So they're going to be trying to score, and at least he can catch the damn ball. And then Javonte Williams is the one that I've talked about a little bit, but man, dude, the price point on Javonte Williams, and I understand that people are going to be a little hesitant because of the injury. He's already played in preseason. He's going to play again in the preseason this week, and he looks fine to me. He doesn't look like an injured running back or a running back that's coming off of a major injury. Grabbing him as your RB2, sometimes RB3, and getting potentially what we thought we could get out of Javonte Williams, especially with no Judy for maybe the first month or month and a half. They're going to have to lean on these skill players, Javonte and P. Ryan both. And people that are worried about P. Ryan, I like both of those guys. Peyton is used to using 2 running backs and both of them being fantasy relevant. We had multiple years of Kamara and Mark Ingram being top 24 fantasy running backs. So they can both find a way to make fantasy, hit fantasy pay dirt. But I try to leave most of my drafts with at least 2 of these guys every single time. And I've already done it in the LTS one. I got Sanders and Connor in that one. So I've lived with that philosophy, and I've liked pretty much every single team that I've gotten at least 2 of those guys in. So Matt, go ahead and talk about any of these guys. I know, like I said, I know you like Connor like I do, but the other 2, I guess we'll have to see what your thoughts are.
Well, for Sanders, I completely understand why there might be some concern. Philly has probably the best offensive line in the NFL. And honestly, it's so good. It's probably ahead of, well ahead of everybody else. That's really a big focal point and why Philly was so successful being able to run with Jalen Hurts and the multiple running backs that they use. But like you said, and I do agree, Carolina has a decent offensive line. They, look at Foreman last year. Deontay Foreman was almost a practice squad player, maybe going to play in the XFL. And he goes to Carolina and he has a lot of success. They run the ball really well. He was a pretty decent fantasy player also. So I think Sanders is going to be fine, and he's going to have a lot of volume, like you said. This is a young rookie quarterback. They're going to want to take the pressure off him. Sanders had a great yards per carry average too, so that's another thing to think about. So if he's getting a lot of touches and his yards per carry is good, you can take that to the bank. And he doesn't have Jalen Hurts to worry about to take touchdowns away from him, so that's good.
That's a big one right there. If he ended with – I'm not saying that Carolina's going to score a ton, but if he ended with over half the team's total touchdowns, because that's just the way that it works for running backs sometimes, I wouldn't be shocked if they get inside the 10 and every time it's just pound Miles Sanders until he finds a way into the end zone.
Yeah. James Conner, we love him. The volume is there. I'm very skittish about him with injuries because he's very injury prone and he always misses time in some capacity, but I do like him a lot. Javonte Williams, people who you said the thing about people being concerned about P. Ryan, you can't be concerned about P. Ryan because you're not drafting him to be a starting RB. You're definitely drafting him as a flex play. And he is exactly that. He's going to be that all season, regardless of what Javonte Williams does. But for context, I drafted Javonte last year in the 3rd round, and now he's going in the 8th, 7th round of most drafts. So, I think the value's still there. I understand why he dropped, but I'm really excited to see how he does, and I like him a lot. So if I can try to get him, I do. But yeah, the only thing that you could say about Javonte that, is not fantasy, relevantly well is he doesn't really catch the ball. He's just kind of a downhill runner. So that does take away.
P. Ryan being there is going to take his passing downs work away quite a bit. But if they keep losing pass catchers, it's not going to matter. They're going to need to use both.
Goal line work, a bell cow running back, that's Javonte Williams. So, I think he's a great flex. He has the potential to be an RB2, but we'll see for sure.
I got him ranked 20, by the way, 20 overall at running back. So I think he can really make that happen. I know that's high. That's high. Nick, what are your thoughts? What are your quick thoughts on this 3-pack of running backs that I love so much?
Man, I get the Miles Sanders thing a little bit. They're going to run the ball, especially with a rookie quarterback, and hopefully he can learn to catch the ball out of the back.
That's the big if right there.
You know what I mean?
Sanders, man.
If he could do that, that would be great. And I guess there's no real competition. Like, right, gone. Is Chuba Hubbard still there? I don't really know. But we saw that, right? They lent towards Foreman last year when CMC was gone. So, like, he's not going to be the guy. I worry about James Conner. A, he's always injury prone. Two, you said that they're going to be down a lot. So how much are they really going to, run the ball? I know that earlier on in the game, they're going to run the ball. But how much are they going to, use him? That'll be a question. I'm out on Javonte. I'm on the Scott Cobe program. I don't draft guys coming a year off of ACL or MCL or any sort of knee surgery because everybody tells you it still takes a year for them to get back unless you're Adrian freaking Peterson. But that's the exception. And but everybody else, I don't really draft them if they're coming off a major surgery. That's just because it takes a year to get back to where they were. Javonte it was late in the year. I mean, if you're gonna draft Javonte, I don't think you're gonna get real good production to him until maybe the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And even at that point, what if Denver's trash? What if it wasn't Hackett and it is just Russ? What if Russ is broken and they're garbage? At that point in time, you could probably just sit Javonte out the rest of the year and say we're going to run P. Ryan, and then you drafted Javonte for nothing.
I feel that, and I think it's important to point out all the potential negatives when you're taking a guy like him. But you brought up Adrian Peterson's recovery, and I think that's what we can get with Javonte. I'm always like you and Scott, where like even Cam Akers last year and J.K. Dobbins and stuff like that. I'm out. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't care how far they fall. But we never actually saw them go into the preseason and look good, and Javonte looks like Javonte. So that's why I have confidence, and I'll take the depreciated ADP stab at him. But I think he's the riskiest choice on this entire list for me by far.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, Jahan Dotson, we kind of already talked about it. Not the injury to Terry McLaurin didn't put me here. To me, Jahan Dotson is cheap Terry McLaurin. He can reach what Terry McLaurin can do in that offense. Sam Howell has looked fantastic this preseason. He has not looked like Desmond Ridder, Matt, so I don't want the comparisons. He's looked great. He really has. And I think that this offense is going to have to throw the ball to keep up with I still don't like the defense of Washington, so I think they're going to be more than enough shootouts. That all leads to Jahan Dotson having a good season. KJ Osborne, I'll die on this hill, and that's fine. The last 2 seasons with Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne has at least 85 targets and at least 5 touchdowns. Now there's no Thielen. Addison has been in the concussion protocol. He's speeding at 140 miles an hour on the road. Like, I just don't. I don't.
He cared about his dog, Ryan. He cared about his dog.
You don't want to say about that. Dog. That's a lie until you produce paperwork.
His Tamagotchi.
Yeah, that's good.
He had to feed it.
I mean, Cage, I only gave him – he had 14% of the passes last year in that offense, and that was over 90 targets. I only bumped him up 1%, and I have that offense throwing the ball 700 times, which is not a big increase in passing from last year. And he's got over 100 targets. That's with Addison doing what he does, with Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson doing what they do. I think he's literally going to the 15th round. You could do a lot worse. And I think he's one of those rare, if you draft Justin Jefferson, why not take KJ Osborne with your last pick? If anything, God forbid, happens to Jefferson, you've got a piece of that passing attack because you know that he's going to be the guy that's going to be picked up the most off of waivers once, if anything, were to happen to JJ. And then Rondale Moore, he averaged 8 targets per game last year, and that was with DeAndre Hopkins in front of him and Marquise Brown in front of him. That team is going to be able to do nothing but complete short passes. That's literally what Rondale Moore does. He takes negative yardage passes and then turns them into positive yardage. You can get him in the 13th round, and I love him because I think that you're going to be able to get weekly flex value out of him, especially with Arizona having to throw 24/7 if they're going to be down as bad as they were. They just traded Isaiah Simmons today for a 7th-round pick and they're starting offensive left tackle. So, it's going to be rough, and they're going to need to throw. So, Matt, I know you don't love Dotson. You kind of were picking on me yesterday because I told you I was trying to trade up to get Dotson. So, what do you think about the other two, but why do you hate Dotson so much?
I just want nothing to do with this Commanders offense. I think that
he doesn't believe.
They're one of the
Did you like the Chiefs offense?
Yeah, I like Patrick Mahomes. Not
See,
Sam
He
Howell.
doesn't believe
You
in
didn't like,
Bieniemy either.
but you didn't like Travis Kelce. You didn't like Tyreek when he was there. You weren't drafting their receivers last year at all. You weren't
I'm
taking
not-
stabs at
If
those guys.
If you're asking me if I'm drafting Eric Bieniemy, no, I'm not drafting Eric Bieniemy.
See?
That's really what it is. And
I
yeah,
think that's a mistake.
Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce could work with Matt Patricia as the offensive coordinator, and they would be just fine. So I'm not
I don't
saying
think so.
I'm not saying
Easy.
I'm not saying that Bieniemy is a bad coordinator. I think he'll be fine. I just don't think that the obviously the talent is way different in Washington than it is Kansas City. And for me, I guess it's more of I want to see it first before I spend a lot of draft stock on a guy like Dotson. Dotson's fine. I mean, where you get him is an understandable ADP, but I just don't think he's going to be a league winner. He's not going to change anything. I like Terry more. I think Terry McLaurin's obviously their best receiver. It's not really a hot take, but it's just, obvious. And every year, just trickled throughout the season, Curtis Samuel does his thing and takes away from Dotson. And I know that was coming, but just wait. And
I'm not
also,
afraid of Curtis Samuel.
and with Bieniemy being the coordinator, I actually think that Antonio Gibson also is going to have a better role now.
I do love
and
Gibson.
he will actually take away some of the passing from the receivers because that's really what they should have done last year. So that's why
when Wentz was in there, Dotson was better than McLaurin as far as like. And then when Wentz went out, Heineke went back to McLaurin. So
right. So it's really going to depend on who Sam Howell likes the most, and we also don't know that yet either.
It's been Dotson all offseason.
Yeah. We'll agree to disagree on this one. I think it's not that I would hate having him if he falls to me at a good ADP. I'm absolutely going to take him, but he's not somebody I'm itching to get, and I have to get in my drafts and trade up for. KJ Osborne, I mean, these guys are going so late that I don't disagree with them. I think they're good picks, but they're not going to make huge flashes. I think Osborne, I know you're super high on him, Ryan, but I don't see him. He's going to be on your bench for the whole season, and you're going to be like, man, I wish this guy did a little bit more. He's not going to be bad, but he's not going to be phenomenal, I don't think. So that's
can you name me another guy that you can get in like the 14th and 15th round?
That's what I was going to say. That's all your your two last picks, especially if you don't have any kickers or defense.
If you don't have kickers or defense, that's a great pick. If you have a kicker or defense, I would rather take the best defense than KJ Osborne. Let's put it that way. I would rather have the Eagles defense than KJ Osborne.
Yeah.
I would move up my defensive pick if that was, what was there.
That's fine. That just means I can get.
Yeah, you can have
get KJ in the 15th.
While we're live on air, shout out to Tom Pelissero hero. He just tweeted out, trade. The Browns are sending Josh Dobbs and a 24th, 7th round pick to the Cardinals for their 24th, 5th round pick. So
Josh Dobbs just went for a 5th round pick.
Yeah. Arizona hasn't named his starting QB, and now Dobbs is in the mix. So,
hey, Papa approved. He also likes Osborne. So get out of here with your crap.
Hear me out. This is my strategy for fantasy in the late rounds like that. I'm fine with being the first person that takes the best defense and missing out on somebody like Osborne or more, because this is the reason. I'm probably drafting Osborne as my 4th or 5th wide receiver. He has to do so well for me to knock out one of the guys I have in my lineup and hope that he does well that previous week, where I could just say, I want the best defense, the best kicker, the best quarterback, the best tight end, those specialty positions that are really despairingly different from, the core amount of players. So give me the early defense over those things. But I'm not saying that taking him in that ADP is wrong. I absolutely think that's a perfect ADP for him. I just don't think it's worth missing out when you could just snag the best defense. I hate being the guy who has to rotate defenses during the weeks, because I end up with like the Cardinals defense because they're playing.
So you would rather have 2 defenses than KJ Osborne?
No, I'm going to draft 1 defense, but I'm just
going to draft. You hate being the guy that rotates defenses. You're eventually going to.
Right.
I see what you're saying. If you drafted the 49ers defense,
I don't have to move.
I guess I see it.
Not worth it. That's right.
Yeah.
Nick, you're smart. Anyways,
Hey, don't say that too many times.
Nick, these 3 wide receivers, I know you love Dotson, so we can skip him, but anything on Osborne more before we go to tight ends real quick?
Yeah, I mean, Osborne's kind of the number 2/3. I do worry about, AJ Hawkinson eating a lot of that now. Kurt really seemed to love him when they traded him, and now you give him a full offseason to get into the playbook. So I worry about that. But, if Jefferson or, who knows what, the kid that drafted that you mentioned, Addison, if he what we don't really know what he's going to be, right? Like we think he's going to be good, but we don't know until we see it. People thought Laquan Treadwell was going to be good, or Jalen Rager, or you know what I mean,
right.
endless.
Right. And N'Keal Harry,
yeah, N'Keal Harry, right? So like all these endless amounts of wide receivers. So we just don't know. You do know what KJ Osborne can bring. He re-signed with the Vikings, right? Like they obviously he believes in them and they believe in him. So I could see that being quite the potential. Rondale Moore, I feel like he's always had some good games. They're going to be, I said the same thing I said about James Conner. It's going to be the same thing about Rondale Moore. They're going to be down a lot, so they got to throw it to somebody. And nobody's on that roster anymore outside of Hollywood Brown. And I'll take Rondale Moore over Hollywood Brown and like ADP-wise, even almost on the field production-wise at this point in their careers. So I like Rondale Moore.
I love Rondale. Matt, real quick, Dulcich, we both kind of said what we wanted to say. He's on your my guy list too, so we can skip past him. But your quarterback on your my guy list is throwing to Juwan Johnson. And the reports that keep coming out, you don't hear anything really about Johnson. You hear stuff about friggin' broken hobbled Jimmy Graham and, all the backup tight ends there like Taysom Hill. Juwan Johnson has been Derek Carr's favorite target. That's what was put out as a presser today. He has been his favorite target in camp, especially inside the red zone. That's because Juwan Johnson is a tight end or a wide receiver that's playing at tight end. We saw it last year. He was the most targeted tight end. He's going to be that again this year. You can get him with your last pick. I got him in tons of best ball leagues as my tight end 2 or 3. And am I saying you're going to get nothing but consistent production? Absolutely not, because unless you got Kelsey, Mark Andrews, and even then sometimes it's a stretch, you ain't going to get consistent tight end production in fantasy. But I think Juwan Johnson could push for 8 to 10 touchdowns this year if that's what's happening right now in camp. So I loved grabbing him. If I lose out on all tight ends, Johnson is that like break glass in case of emergency 14th round pick that I have every single time.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a really good best ball player too. You got to think Derek Carr with like Darren Waller, for example, and even after Darren Waller, Foster Moreau, he was always getting tight ends involved. And I think that's going to be a Dennis Allen thing too. I think he's going to want to get the tight end involved pretty predominantly as well. So with the ADP, give me Juwan Johnson all day long. He's a great, guy to have on your bench. If you have Andrews or Kelsey or somebody, you have to put him in, on that bye week or something. I think he could still give you production. He might give you that touchdown or 2 touchdown game when you got to use him. So best ball, love him. Absolutely love him. The inconsistency is the hard part. You don't know when it's going to happen. So, I mean, that's a lot of tight ends. But I think it's going to be there no matter what. So, and we'll talk about Derek Carr more and why I think that's going to be a big thing for them too.
Juwan Johnson, you got any takes on him, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it. Derek Carr's favorite wide receiver before Devontae got there last year was Darren Waller. So he knows how to throw to a tight end, unlike Russell Wilson. So I like Juwan Johnson.
Let's go to Matt's my guys. We don't got to go over Geno because we already did that. But you got Derek Carr in here, which listen, you can admit this, and I know you will. He's never been that guy for fantasy, Absolutely. But I want you to fight for him, and then I've even got a stat that I can give you to kind of help your case because I do like Carr. I have him as a QB2 in a bunch of different Superflex leagues. I've never had that break glass in case of emergency pick of him in a regular 1 quarterback league yet, but try and convince me to do that with the other like 10 drafts I got going on right now.
There's 3 reasons why I would take Derek Carr. 1, his ADP is, he's almost undrafted, basically.
You get him in the 13th round right now.
2, I personally believe that the weapons he has right now in New Orleans surpass anything that he had with the Raiders besides Devontae Adams. Of course. You're never going to.
It's his best receiving core. I agree.
Right. And we talked about Geno with his core. We talked about Rodgers. Carr is another one that you could put in there. Lastly, and this is not a stat thing, I think Carr so badly needed to get out of the Raiders system and just be with a different team and have a different mindset. He's going to be in the dome. I know, Vegas has a dome and everything, but he was in Oakland without the dome and everything for a while. I think it's just such a good fit. I really, really think that he's going to have a better season this year. He's got to really just manage the turnovers. I think that's the biggest thing for him. He's not a running quarterback, so you have that limitation in fantasy. But in terms of where you can get him, I would rather have him than some of these other guys that are sitting floating around at that period of time. So give me him, and I think he's going to have a pretty decent season. Remember Derek Carr early in the career when the Raiders were 12-4 and like 12 and whatever it is, and they were making the playoffs and stuff. It was very early on. I think they can get back to that now. So that's just
and he's got pass catchers in the backfield. He's got pass catchers at tight end. He's got great wide receivers. Even guys, people love Shaheed in terms of like dynasty players love Shaheed. That's their three.
Other big thing, NFC is horrible this year, and also his division is atrocious.
It's the worst.
Their division's the worst, yeah.
So win-win. Like
you brought up
they're a huge playoff contender in the NFC.
You brought up the domes, and I was talking with a bunch of the people that Rotoballer in the work chat today, and someone brought up Derek Carr. Did you know that every single game except for one this year, he plays in a dome? 16 of his 17 games are in a dome, and he produces 5+ more fantasy points per game in a dome in his career than outside of a dome. So
that's a deep number pull right there.
Well, it's so like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Fantasy stuff,
right? Like, does it really matter at the end of the day? Probably not. But it is something you can point to and be like, "Hey, look at that."
It's the same thing with primetime cousins and non-primetime cousins. You have to look at that stuff. It matters.
All right, Nick, Derek Carr. Do you like Derek Carr or no?
Man, I would take. Yeah, I would take a stab at him where he's at drafted. I like Gino and Aaron more than I like Derek. I don't trust the Saints coaching staff. Like, I feel like Sean Payton left that place in a shithole.
Yeah,
got out just the time. And Dennis Allen's not the guy. So I don't really. And they got a lot of talent. We love Olave. If you're drafting Olave, he's going in the second round to second to third round in a lot of drafts. So if you love Olave, the guy throwing the ball is going to be Derek Carr, right? So they got if Mike Thomas, Jesus, let's cry. Can Mr. Glass, finally come back? I don't know. So it's a lot of question marks, but they got a quarterback. He does have the most talent he's ever had around him. I just question that coaching staff. I feel like they're going to screw him out of something, or this guy just does seem a little snake bitten at times. But I know we're talking about playing a dome, but he also played in the AFC West. And outside of Kansas City, what other? I guess Denver can get cold, right? But so I guess never mind. That argument's out the fucking window.
I think it's just the wind. The minute he feels wind on the back of his neck, he just starts throwing interceptions.
he's just mad.
He's got to feel AC on the back of his neck, not wind.
So I guess they'll just lose to Tampa Bay, and that's it. So yeah, I would take a stab at him if you are like me in a situation where you waited too long to take quarterback, and that you got dumb people who took quarterbacks super early, and you're just stuck. You're stuck. Well, I guess you're taking Derek Carr.
You could probably do worse. His start. If you guys are people like me, where sometimes you just wait on quarterback so much, you look at like the first 4 games and then you play waivers. Carr has one of the easiest opening schedules of the entire league. So like when you're looking at streaming guys, even in those first 3-4 weeks, Carr is going to be on those lists.
Let me ask you this. And I'm not trying to be a homer. It's just, what do you guys Ryan, you love Jordan Love. You've told me you think Jordan Love's going to be a baller. Where's he at? Would you take Jordan Love over Derek Carr? Love, is going to have the mobile aspect, right? As far as running the football. He's a little bit more athletic. He's got good young wide receivers around him. He's been in that system for 3 years.
I've got these guys on a ton of my Superflex teams as my QB 2 and 3, because I try to leave every draft with 3 quarterbacks and most. Dude, it's just I'm just gonna be playing matchups. I feel like the first 4 or 5 weeks, because I want to see it with Love. Like, I've seen the preseason stuff. I'm very impressed But again, it's preseason. Like, you don't even watch for a reason. So like, it's you want to put a lot of faith in what you've seen on the field already, but you still got to be smart about it. Like, I know what Derek Carr is probably going to do the first few weeks, and I'm probably going to trust that over Love until I see it produce from Love. But Love's got a friggin' cakewalk schedule the first 6 weeks of his season. So, like, I would not be shocked if by the second or third week I'm switching Carr out for Love in those super flex leagues that I have both of them. So, I listen, 15th round pick, you could do a lot worse than Jordan Love. I really think that. Matt, I know you hate Jordan Love, so go ahead.
I mean, for that choice, that's fine. I think, a lot of these guys in the 15th round for quarterbacks, especially, you don't know because you haven't really seen a lot. So I think that Love is another one. I personally am, doing guilty before proven innocent in this case, I guess. I don't really think that, I don't see a lot from Jordan Love that makes me think he's going to be a good fantasy quarterback. He kind of reminds me more of like a game manager. He might have success just controlling the offense in a way that they score, maybe relying more on the run, but not, putting up.
That's kind of what Derek Carr's been, though. That's what Derek Carr's been for a lot of his career.
But the problem
he had like 135 touchdowns.
I don't disagree with you. I absolutely agree. And he's not a running quarterback either, which also hurts his ability to have high fantasy numbers. I just think that, this time with Carr, I know he had Adams for a long time, and that was really good, but he's got
the receiver core in New Orleans is like up here compared to Green Bay, Nick.
Thomas, Chris Olave. I mean, like, this just speed. And like, it really actually felt like a lot of the times Carr was forcing the ball to Adams because, like last season, because they just didn't really do a whole lot with anybody else. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think all those guys are worth 15 round picks. You got to take a shot with one of them and maybe they pan out. I think that if Love is going to have success, though, winning football games, it's not going to be from a fantasy perspective, in my opinion. It's just going to be because the coach tells him what to do. He does it, and he's not making huge flashy plays. They just drive the ball down the field. Aaron Jones is going to be a monster this year, and I think that's how they get it done if they do.
I'd take both over Prescott. I'll say it right now.
It's so funny you say that because a lot of people are really against Prescott right now. I mean, you got Brandon Cooks, you got Michael Gallup, you got CeeDee Lamb.
Did you see the story about Brandon Cooks today? Jerry Jones came out and said he wants to discipline Brandon Cooks because he took Micah Parsons and Tony Pollard up in a plane, like a small plane that Brandon Cooks was flying in Dallas, and they were just doing it on their free time. So now he hates Brandon Cooks. Apparently.
Why did you take my $1 million linebacker and my future running back out in the midair? You guys could have died.
He said he took his two best players up into the sky without his permission. That was his quote verbatim. So he didn't even say Dak Prescott's one of his best players on his team.
I mean, he's not lying.
He's not lying. All right. We're getting long, so we're going to just finish out Matt's My Guys, and then we're going to save the fades for next week. But, Matt, you got Herbert and Madison as your running backs. I can get with you on Madison. Herbert, I want Roschon Johnson. I love Roschon Johnson in Chicago, and I think it's going to take a little bit, but I think he's going to be the guy by the end of it.
So, again, I don't know why I do this, but I torture myself with preseason football. So I do watch, and I do see what they've been doing. And Khalil Herbert's going to have a role even if Roschon becomes the 3-down back.
I agree.
Deonta Foreman, no, he won't. But, Herbert is really a pass-catching gadget type player. He does run a little bit, but, at the beginning of the season, he's going to be the starter. Throughout the season, I'm sure Roschon will probably take over. But Khalil Herbert's always going to be there. And where you're getting him in drafts, I think it's a huge value. It's like going 10 right now, I think. You got to look at who's there at 10. I think it's totally fine to take him there. Who knows? Roschon could completely flutter and not do well. So if that's the case, Khalil Herbert's got a job all year long. We know who he is. Madison, I just think the volumes there. People keep saying this is going to be the Mike Davis of the Falcons a few years ago. Absolutely not.
No. Those situations are so different, and I hate that comparison because I've seen it.
I had Mike Davis too. I was so mad.
That's what Those quads, man.
That's just the pure dysfunction of the Falcons. We can talk about that.
Well, Mike Davis was also coming off the year before that. He killed it. Was it Carolina? He killed it.
Mm-hmm. He did.
Yeah.
But
I think I got him off of waivers.
He was one of the best waiver additions ever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Madison's
so
been in the system for years. That's why this situation is totally different, and I believe in Madison over that.
they know Madison. He knows the system. He's basically like Dalvin Cook's illegitimate child. So this is fine. I think Madison, with where he's going, is going to be perfect. I think he's going to get a ton of volume, even though they're a passing team. He is a good pass catcher too. So give me Madison. And they didn't sign anybody. All these running backs right now that are still out there. Fournette, Zeke was out there. Now Jonathan Taylor might be traded. They stick with Madison. That's a big deal. I think that's going to pay off for people who pick him in fantasy.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that. Nick, do you like these guys, or are you fading both?
No, I like Madison for all the reasons you guys said too. They could have went and got like Kareem Hunt or somebody. You know what I mean? Like they're not even working. They're not even bringing these guys in for workouts. You know what I mean? So like that's how proven they love Alexander Madison. So
and there's been no noise of JT being traded there. Like you see it with Philly, Miami, Buffalo. Like you've heard it. Yeah, they are not even letting that go into the universe. So they obviously think that he's going to be the dude.
Yeah. So they like it. I'm with you, Ryan. I'm not on the Khalil Herbert train. I'm on the Roscoe Jenkins Johnson train. And I also like Chase Brown of Cincinnati as well.
Yeah. The backups, they're fun. They're fun to take your shots on. And you can go check out that article I just posted if you haven't already, Nick. That thing took me forever. The wide receivers you got, I totally agree with Deontay Johnson. I won't even, go into anything about that. I'll just let you talk about him, Matt. Tank Dell is what I'm interested in because you and I have both been pretty public about how much we love John Mechie for Houston. But then you sent me Tank Dell as your guy in the text messages where I'm like, that must have been a damn typo. There's no way you put him over Mechie now, but I guess you do. So I want to hear why.
Yeah, no, listen, I do like Mechie a lot. And, it's going to be hard to say who's going to be the guy in Houston because it is two rookies. Essentially, Mechie was hurt last year and a rookie quarterback. But CJ Stroud has come out and, publicly said Tank Dell is, he wanted him, drafted him. Tank Dell's been pretty decent in the preseason as well. He did have suffered a minor injury, but I think he's going to be their wide receiver one. I think Mechie's going to move all around the field. Nico Collins is there, but who cares? Give me Tank Dell. He could be a wide receiver one for that team and, have decent numbers on a team that's just maybe, not very good, which is fine. But if him and Stroud really get a connection, this could be the next 1-2 punch for, we talk about quarterbacks and receivers having a good chemistry. I don't want to say these names and compare them because I'm not, but Diggs and Allen and, Mahomes and Kelsey, they could have that, marriage if, that's what it ends up becoming. And then Deontay Johnson, he had such an underperforming season last year, and it really wasn't even so much his fault. It was just kind of how things happened. Pittsburgh forgot to play offense for the first 8 weeks of the season or however long it was, and then they figured it out late in the year. I think he's going to have a great year. He can only go up. Even if he has the same style of offense, he can only go up. I mean, he had almost no touchdowns.
He had no touchdowns. Zero.
No touchdowns. That's right. I thought he had
0 touchdowns. He was dragged down at the 1 yard line, second most to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah. And I know Pickens has really come along in this preseason, but I actually think that helps Johnson. I think he can start playing as more like a slot role, move around the, each side of the field for the offense. So I like Deontay Johnson a lot, especially where he's going. I think he's a really good flex player, potentially a wide receiver too.
What you got, Nick? You like these guys? Are you in on Deontay Johnson, or do you just want to go for Pickett?
No, I am on Johnson. Last year, I feel like it's the anomaly. The guy was his whole career has been draftable. So last year was the anomaly, and I just feel like that was rookie Matt Canada's offense. But this year, man, you watch from what I hear again from preseason, they've looked a lot better preseason wise. Every day there's a highlight of Pickens, so teams are going to start clearing on him. So who's there is going to be Deontay Johnson. So I like Deontay Johnson. Tank Dell, it seems like I'm like with you guys. I want to see this John Mechie just because, again, he's a year after having cancer, but Tank Dell, from everything that I've heard, is he's just beating everybody on the practice teams. He's fast as hell. He's, we know not Florida, but D'Amico is a heck of a defensive coach for the Texans, and he's pretty much told Tank Dell to, hey, stop burning my defense because we can't freaking
took him off the field because of it.
Yeah, we're looking bad because of you. So Tank Dell wouldn't be, if you're going to take a stab at somebody late in the late rounds, why not? You know what I mean? Like, why not throw a dart at Tank Dell as your last pick and then just see what happens?
Yeah, his ADP has risen to, I think, like the back of the 12th. So Matt and I draft our home league this weekend. I'm very curious to see where a lot of these guys go because, dude,
stuff.
If you don't think that Trevor and a bunch of these guys and Dad, who's watching right now, is going to snipe all these guys, you're dead wrong. We're going to end up with teams that we absolutely friggin' hate.
I could be lying. I could hate all of these players.
He's not. Trust me. We talk too much. This is the crux of having a show that family watches because now they all know. Tight ends, Greg the third leg. We don't got to talk about him anymore. But Dalton Kincaid, I know you're big. I put your Bills hat on. You can just if you could light your room up blue and red, I feel like you would when you talk about Dalton Kincaid. So just go on your diatribe. I don't hate Kincaid. I'm afraid of his draft price because he's going in like the 9th round right now.
Okay, but listen, for what you're getting in the 9th and 10th round, and from again, I've watched preseason. I actually enjoyed this preseason games, but he is getting involved already in a unbelievable level. I think that he is going to be the tight end for Buffalo. I think Buffalo wishes they could trade Knox at this point. How much money they owe him and how different he is from Kincaid.
Because they know they can't run block. Knox is an amazing blocker. He is top 5 in the NFL as a blocking tight end. There's no question about
then
that.
Move to right tackle then, because
but he can at least catch. So
yeah, but Kincaid is going to be completely over the middle every single game. Allen's already throwing to him. I think that from day one, it's not going to take him time. That's the biggest thing for me. He's going to jump in and be a part of the offense immediately. And for a 9 or 10, I think he's going to be a top 10 tight end this year. You've got obviously your Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, Waller. The top 5 is pretty solidified, but the back half of the top 10 is wide open, and I think Kincaid is going to take that.
That's fair. What do you think about Kincaid, Nick?
I'll know more. I'll feel better. Like they say, like they're going to line him up as a receiver, right? Like they're going to use him as like Travis Kelce-esque.
Basically, yep.
They're using what's called 12 and a half formation, where the tight end one is the receiver, the other one's going to block.
Yeah, and they're going to use Dalton Knox as the blocker, right? So if they use him like that, then sign me up. I've gotten Kincaid, and I think I've drafted. And man, let's take a snap. So let's take a. They got to throw somebody else outside of Diggs. We saw Davis, not be the guy, so they need a number 2. Maybe Kincaid's gonna be that guy, and if he's gonna play that Travis Kelce role, then sign me up. I like it.
I knew Dad was going to say something when we talked about Kincaid. He said Kincaid looks really good this preseason, slippery like a wide receiver. Listen, I keep hearing people tell me out of Buffalo that this is going to be the Gabe Davis year, and I know that this offense can support.
Wasn't that last year? Wasn't that last year?
Right. He caught 52% of his passes. Like, Jesus, man, that was horrible. But I don't know. I love betting on Diggs and I love betting on James Cook, but the rest of the Bills offense that's not Josh Allen, I have a really tough time with right now. So it's just ADP. It's just ADP and guys that are going around them. But when it comes to Kincaid, if he's playing the slot, sans last year, Josh Allen has hyper targeted the slot, like 140 plus targets a year to the slot. So we'll see how that goes. But we're going to save the fades for next week because, we always go long-winded when it comes to our topics here. So Matt and I will give you guys our must fades next week. Nick, do you have any guys that you want to plant your flag on real quick before we head on the show that you're trying to leave every draft with?
The champion doesn't give out his secrets. The champion doesn't give out his secrets. You know what I mean? That's how you stay champion. You know what I mean? So catch me tonight, 8:00 Central, 9 Eastern on the LTS for the LTS show, baby.
Yes, go to the plug immediately. I love it. Dad said Gabe Davis was a good contract year. He's going to ball out. I'll believe it when I see it, Dad. I'll believe it when I see it. Matt, plug your stuff, and then I'll get us out of here.
Listen, Nick used auto pick to win that championship, so
never.
The fact that he drafted N'Keal Harry and still won pisses me off the most. get an injury as late as I did, I would have had that league.
I've always said fantasy is 70% skill and 30% luck, and Nick took that 30% and
Nick's
gave
a
it the
freaking
best time of
leprechaun.
his life last year. Join us tomorrow for Let's Talk Bets. We're going to talk the week 0 college football. Finally, something more than just baseball to bet, but baseball's been good to us too, so we'll chat that also. So Let's Talk Bets. I don't know the time specifically. I will tweet that out, and Scott Coe will join me.
Oof, Matt, Khalil Herbert just went in our LTS draft at pick 13.
And then Kadarius Toney, and then Michael Thomas.
And then Michael Thomas just won at pick 108 and Kadarius Toney. Oh, I was hoping Tony might make it back to me. I was thinking about taking him next, but
yeah.
Dreams are dead, boys. Dreams are dead. Anyway, obviously we don't care about the show anymore. We just want to go draft. So we will catch you guys. So Sunday, Matt and I have a draft. I am not going to commit to doing a show 1,000%, the Off the Rails show at 5, but I will let not just Nick, but everybody else that does a show with me know prior to that. And if not, next Thursday we'll be back here last week before the regular season next week or week after, some shit like that. But we'll talk our fades since I know a lot of people are drafting at the absolute end of August, early September. So
Labor Day weekend's my big money draft. So
dude, can't wait to see that team. That terrible, terrible team.
Hey, we don't say shit.
Guys, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.